Hello everyone, I am here today to make a video on the latest patch notes that just dropped, and they'll be releasing into the game on May 18th, which is also tomorrow. So without further ado, let's just get right into it. A little greeting here, just saying that they release patch notes, easy peasy. Two new skins will be added tomorrow. This skin honestly looks pretty cool. Another samurai theme skin. Countess already has one, but I mean the Murdoch one looks pretty darn cool. I believe this is also their own original design because I don't remember this in the original Paragon. Has an awesome little dragon gun and everything, and it's only a rare, so that's pretty sweet. That'll be a great skin to buy if you're into that. And we've got the Ancient Terracotta Steel skin, which is also a rare, and this one I do remember being in the original Paragon. Just because he's like a weird human looking steel. He's like big boy steel over here. Also a pretty cool skin though. I suspect I'll see a lot of the steel players using this. A bunch of skin discounts. If you want to look at all that, you can just pause the video. I'm not going to read through all of it. We're here for the balance changes. Hero balance changes. Looks like they're starting with Mako. So, Mako gift is Q. Speed increase adjusted. Okay, so that's a big nerf by like 10%. It went from 15 to 5%. The base recovery amount also received a pretty big nerf. 10 at level 1, like 15, level 2, 20, I suspect 25, and then 30. That's kind of crazy. That's a lot. You'll probably see a less Mako, especially since it looks like the rest of these are going to be nerfs to his Q. Additional recovery by 1% here, and it just goes up and up. Yeah, it looks like they're really cracking down on Mako, which is good, because I hated fighting that guy. Base recovery for 3 or more people got nerfed by a little bit. Additional recovery amount adjusted. Yeah. Again, huge healing nerfs is pretty much what all of that equates to. They nerfed his E, which I believe is his jump. Just bigger cooldown, which is also good. Like, he was super good because he could just sit back and constantly throw his Qs, which would heal his teammates and poke you down. And anytime anybody jumped on him, he always had his E up to jump away. And so I like these nerfs, honestly. And then they actually added a cooldown to his ultimate, because, I mean, before it was just way too short. And they said Mako has a very good synergy with the allied team compared to other support heroes because of his increased movement speed and recovery skills. Therefore, Mako's overall recovery, movement speed, increased stats have been adjusted. Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see this coming. He was one of the stronger solo laners, and you'll probably see less of him now. He's still usable just because of his great poke, but definitely not as good as before. Moving on to Drongo, which everybody kind of saw coming, seeing as how he was busted. Uranium rounds, which I call rad rounds, because that's what it was called in the original Paragon. So rad rounds, an extra 2 seconds on the cooldown, that's not that bad. The base max health damage for the 3 rounds has been nerfed by quite a bit. So the max before was 9%, and now it's 6. That is quite the large nerf. Like the early, you're still going to dominate early, but the later it goes on, it does not scale as hard, like at all. The thing is, it's still max health true damage, and max health true damage will always be good. So even though they nerfed it, he's still going to win the one-on-one gunfights with any ranger out there. If they're even, Drongo will still win because he has extra damage. His shrapnel bazooka, his R, his ult. The base damage was nerfed by quite a bit. Good 40 or so. And the physical power coefficient also nerfed by 40%, which is also big. And I honestly see that. His ult was great. It did tons of damage, and got him out of any situation because of the knockback. And now it's going to do decent damage and still get him out of situations. His ult was overtuned, and I like that they nerfed this. And honestly, he is still going to be like the best ADC in my opinion, just because he's still going to win the gunfight. I think next patch they're going to nerf him again, and it's going to be at the movement speed that he gets upon landing 3 rad rounds, because he also has lots of utility on top of all of his damage. Like the 2-second nerf is nothing, honestly. They just need to nerf the movement speed, then I think he'll be brought down a peg or two. But this definitely helps. It's definitely a great start. He won't be as high up as he is now. And they said when Drongo purchases an attack speed item, rad rounds E damage momentarily increases. Giving him a significant advantage in all one-on-one situations. Rad rounds E overall values have been adjusted so other heroes can counter it more easily. Yeah, and like I said, I mean, he still wins the one-on-one fight easily. And he still scales hard into the late game because he counters tanks with his true damage. Still really good. Chimera here is up next. Orb of Recovery duration adjusted. Okay, I mean, that's fine. He doesn't hold on to his healing orbs as long by half a second. I don't play a lot of Chimera, but I suspect that's not going to hurt him too much. Orb amount adjusted. Okay, this is where the nerf comes in. He's not regenerating as much per orb anymore. By, like, that point something for every single level. But, you know, plus still building anti-heal will still hurt him. And so that's a pretty big nerf, I suspect. And they're nerfing his ult. The slow on the ult, you're only slowed by 30%. And the base damage is nerfed by a lot. Like 40 at level 1, 60, 80. That's crazy. I liked his ult the way it was, because he doesn't have much to offer in team fights other than his ult. Okay, and then they added a 0.02 coefficient on it to, like, help the nerf a little bit, to, like, counteract it, but that doesn't really matter. The duration and recovery amounts of Chimera Orb have been adjusted due to its excessive efficiency. Active Insanity overall values have also been adjusted. Yeah, like, I would have been cool with just the Orb nerfs. I don't think his ult needed to be hit. But, I mean, we'll see how it affects him. He was definitely one of the more popular junglers, but I don't think he was, like, the best, simply because he couldn't... He wasn't a great team fighter, like Grux is, or like Feng Mao is. Okay, Narbash is up next. His Q has been buffed to the attack and movement speed by 5% at each level, and his healing has been buffed by 2 at each level. I don't play a lot of Narbash. I don't think anybody plays a lot of Narbash because he's like the worst support right now. But I don't think this will do much good for him. Like, he still gets outshined by Dekker, who I suspect is lower in the patch notes, and Muriel, who we see right here. Mako is still probably better than Narbash ever will be. So there's just not a lot to play. There's no reason to play Narbash right now. We received many comments about how Narbash has become less appealing since the release of Mako. Yeah. Or is it Mako? I'm saying Mako. Narbash's AoE skills have been completely adjusted so his unique abilities can stand out in combat. Yeah, he's still not going to be played. Murdoch's right mouse button skill has been adjusted for the physical power coefficient. Why? I don't know why they felt the need to do this. I mean, I'll take it. I don't really care, but it's just a bizarre thing to throw in the patch notes. Well, I don't know what prompted the change. Because, like, you only use the shotgun for the knockback. You're never going to use it for the damage. And they just felt the need to buff it by 10%, I guess. It literally changes nothing at all. It's a weird change to make. Anyway, going on to Muriel. Her right mouse button shield has been buffed by a lot. at each level. 10 at level 1, 15, 20, 25, 30. I think, if I did that math right. No, it's been buffed more than that. That's crazy. More power coefficient on it. Less cooldown. Final Judgment Q skill, enemy team slow, allied team acceleration adjusted. So they buffed that as well. They adjusted the duration, so that's, I think, a nerf. I don't play a lot of Muriel, but that's a nerf because it's less time. Less cooldown on her ult. More coefficient on her ult. I don't know why they felt the need to buff this character at all. She is really good as a support. Like, S tier, even. And now she's just going to be even better. Like, more shielding, more everything. They just... I think they're going to have to tone her down again in the next patch note. I feel like they're overcompensating, because last patch they nerfed the fact that she can't shield people through walls. So now I feel like they just felt bad, I guess. And now they're trying to buff her back up. And it's just bizarre, because you're going to see tons of Muriels in the lane now. There isn't a single thing wrong with the character now. It's just going to be impossible to get through all the shields when you're trying to kill her ADC, or even trying to kill Muriel herself. And she was already hard to deal with in lane. So I'm not really looking forward to the Muriel meta. But, I mean, we'll just see how it goes when it actually hits live. The value of Final Judgment has been adjusted so it can be used in various ways. The cooldown has been completely adjusted to increase the skill's utilization. I just don't think it was needed. She was in a perfect spot before. She was S tier. And now she's probably in, like, S plus now or something. Rampage buffs. Savage Heave Q skill stun duration. So every time you upgrade it, you'll get longer stun, which is pretty cool. Goes up to 1.7, which isn't that much longer when you see it on paper, but an extra 0.2 seconds feels like an eternity. They buffed his ult, which is, like, the best part of Rampage already. You gain an extra 50 health at every level. Or just an extra flat 50 health when you use his ult. And you recover more health per second, because it went hand in hand with how much health you gained, I believe, was how it did. His body size has been adjusted to increase according to the liberated skill level. That's pretty cool. So, I mean, he's going to grow super big when you push ult, and that way you'll be able to, 1, soak more bullets for your team. Like, you'll be a human shield now, like you were supposed to. And 2, like, you'll look threatening. It'll be scary seeing the giant hulking mass of fish running at you. AoE damage has been slightly adjusted to increase according to the skill. That's because you're getting bigger. So the bigger you are, the wider range you have of the AoE damage, which is fine. But yeah, this is cool. It actually has value, and it, like, fits with his character, so it'll be fun to play in game. The stun duration has been adjusted so that Savage Heave can be used more efficiently during combat, and his body size has been adjusted to make use of the liberated skill more obvious and threatening. Yeah, definitely. You'll certainly be more obvious and threatening. That's a really cool change. On to Dekker. I pray it's not buffs like Muriel. I'm 1000% sure they're going to nerf her. Okay, her jump cooldown has been nerfed. Level 1, it's still 12.5. You'll see the most here, where it used to go down to 8.5, but now it only goes down to 10.5. That's crazy. So now she doesn't have, like, the most insane movement in the game. It actually costs mana to use them now. I can't believe it didn't cost a lot of mana to use it before. Less distance is also really good. Movement distance adjusted. The plasma ball mana cost is getting nerfed. It costs more to use it, so she can't just spam it in lane. I guess it's only by 5, but I'll take it, I guess. Anything to nerf for Dekker. Plasma ball stun duration. Yes, the nerf on the stun, so she can't spam it as much, and it doesn't hurt as much when she throws it at you. It goes from 0.9 to 0.7, and like I said on Rampage, like the 0.2 doesn't really seem like it's a lot, but trust me, it is. Plasma Dome, mana cost, perfect. Less spamming in lane means less damage for free. Plasma Dome, instant explosion adjusted, perfect. It used to be 80%, which is kind of stupid. I'm glad that they nerfed that. It goes down to 60. So the way it works is you throw down the bubble, and then it stays there for 3 seconds, and if it stays for 3 seconds, it just explodes and it does its damage. You can activate it early to make it do 80% of its total damage. Now it's 60, which is great, because you would just get stunned and then bubbled, and you'd lose like 200 health, and it was stupid. Damage value for Plasma Dome, instant explosion adjusted. So yeah, Plasma Dome will do less damage, which is great. I'm not sure if that's a nerf or if it's just telling me how much 60% is. But either way, I mean, it does less damage. That's all I want. Her ult has been nerfed again, which is good. I mean, it's still... You can nerf her ult all you want. It's still going to be the best ult in the game. She traps people in the stupid cage and they can't shoot back at you. It's insane. It starts at 4.5 to 5.5 to 6.5. So a half a second nerf at each level, which is... If your team can't kill the people in the cage in that amount of time, it wasn't a good ult on your part. And slightly longer cooldown at level 1 and 2. It's still the same at level 3. We received many comments about how Dekker's ability to survive and counter were excessively high compared to other heroes, so her mana consumption and damage, as well as her overall stats and cooldowns, have been adjusted. Okay, so this was a lot, and I don't think it'll be enough to kill Dekker off completely. Like, she'll still be a super strong pick. But since they just buffed Muriel, I'm willing to bet Muriel's going to be the new Dekker. She's going to be picked or banned a lot. Not to say that Dekker still won't be annoying with her stun and her bubble and her cage, but I think that she's replaced as the king of supports by Muriel for now. Wait, we'll see when it comes live, but I'll always hate Dekker, so you'll still hear me complain about her plenty. Steel changes. Buffs, I hope. Cooldown on his right shield bash. Yep, about half a second at each level. Cooldown reduction, so that's pretty good. Base shield amount on his charge was buffed by 10. That's pretty good. That'll help him in lane a little bit. Coefficient, slightly more coefficient damage. That doesn't really matter because you don't exactly build a lot. I don't think his Q scaled. His Q scaled with armor, I think, maybe. So that might help a little bit. Yeah, I changed my mind. That'll help a little bit, because it scales with how much physical armor he's building. And his ult cooldown has been buffed by like 5 seconds. I don't know why the 5 seconds was what they went with, but whatever. 5 seconds is hardly a buff to this. I don't know why it's here. Overall stats have been adjusted to make Steel's ability to survive in strength and lane combat more apparent. He was already like a decent solo laner. He was nerfed earlier in Overprime's release days. And so he went from like the best character in the game to like this weird middle ground. This won't help him a whole lot, but it'll help a little bit. He'll be a decent solo laner still. Nothing crazy with the changes here. Revenant, Vital Wound, E skill effect, and description adjusted. So before it read, decreases healing by 20% for 3 seconds for a selected enemy and deals true damage equal to 1% of the enemy hero's max health every time damage is dealt by a basic attack. Additionally, slows by 5% for 1 second. Slow stacks up to 6 times. Now it reads, decrease healing by 20% for 3 seconds for a selected enemy, slows by 5% for 1 second, and deals true damage equal to 1% of the enemy hero's max health every time damage is dealt by a basic attack. The only difference I see here is that slow doesn't stack anymore. So, like a nerf, but it's nerfing his E, which nobody really pressed anyway. The problem with Revenant is that it feels so bad to push his abilities because your attack speed is already really slow, and then you have to reload. So anytime you push an ability, you're wasting an auto. Like, you can't be autoing, and if you're out of bullets, you're not reloading either. So it's weird on Revenant. Nerfing his E doesn't really change anything, just because it was already not great before. You leveled it last. So, I mean, overall, who cares? Not really a change at all. Revenant, or not Revenant, sorry, Wraith. His right mouse button skill was buffed. It has a 80% magical coefficient now. So that'll be fun to deal with. Looks like his cooldown for his Q, the little ward that he places down, was reduced by quite a bit. And time distortion, his rewind, also reduced. He received many comments stating that it was hard for Wraith to be active in the later half of the match. The skill's overall stats have been adjusted so it remains powerful throughout the match. Like, Wraith's whole thing was that he was super good early, and now he's going to be, like, even better late game. So they might have to nerf his early game to kind of counteract that. Like, if you wanted to be really good early, he can't be good late. Like, you can't be buffing his late game because he's bad late game. You pick the early game character, just you shouldn't be good late game. That's kind of what you do. You have to win the game early. So yeah, they'll have to maybe readjust if this gets too much. But I still think it'll be fine. But again, we'll see when it hits live. Wraith will always be annoying to deal with. Sephiroth, his ult adjusted to face hero forward regardless of aim direction upon use. Sephiroth's R skill has been adjusted so that it can land hits more easily. So I believe what this is saying is if your character is facing to the left and your camera is facing forward, your character will snap forward when you push your ult, which shouldn't that happen anyway? That happens on every character, right? Like, I'm pretty sure if you're facing left on Drongo and your camera's facing a different direction and you mash your shotgun ult, I'm pretty sure you ult in that direction. Unless I'm just misinterpreting this, but yeah. So he can land his ult a little easier. They've done the same change, like 3 patches in a row, to try to make his ult easier to land. But yeah, interesting stuff. Iggy and Scorch. Nerfs. It looks like it, just by skimming this. Another friend, his turret. His turrets cost more mana. Looks like, wow, it costs 15 more at level 1. Same thing at the rest of the levels. It costs like 15 more at each level. He can only have 3 turrets out now. That's kind of crazy. Because his whole thing was that he's just going to set up a ton of turrets in a bush and try to kill somebody super quick. That's probably the biggest nerf they could ever do to this character. You will probably not see a lot of Iggy and Scorch anymore. His cooldown is greater. You can't use it as much. They slightly buffed the attack speed to try to counteract the fact that you can't have as many turrets out at a time. But I don't think that'll be enough. You get more gold for killing his turret. Looks like they are buffing his passive. Dynamic Duo base damage per second adjusted. So, because they took away an extra turret, they're trying to make him less reliant on said turrets. So they're making his burn damage a little bit more. Looks like they're buffing the coefficient on his burn damage. They are nerfing the cooldown on his ult. Attack speed increase on his ult was also changed. And slow rate is also less. So they said, we received many comments that it was tricky to deal with Iggy and Scorch's mini turrets. The abilities of the mini turrets have been adjusted to make them easier to handle. Yeah, I kind of feel like they gutted the character. This right here was not what they needed to do. I mean, I just don't think you'll see him anymore. He won't be able to solo objectives as quickly, which is why you played him. He won't be able to, like, hard kill people who dive him, which is why you played him. And he's just giving away free gold even more. So I feel like it'll feel really bad to pick Iggy. Alright. Item balance changes. Mini Moda costs like 400 less gold, 300 less gold. Nobody really builds Mini Moda anymore. I think it's good on Gadget because you constantly get the slow procs from her already slowing ability. Maybe on Faye too, but again, there's better mage items to build right now. But still, nice. It makes it cheaper. Maybe it'll come back into the meta. Sweet Life, the cooldown of its effect. So its effect was if you get a kill, you like recover 10% of your health and mana over like 5 seconds. But it can only be procced once every 20 seconds. Now it can be procced once every 12 seconds. So nobody really builds it, except for I see Muriel's build it all the time. Maybe more people will build it now. Well, I'll just have to see. I'll do some testing with this item. I always kind of liked the idea of it. I just never really fit in with anything else. The Feather Protection. It used to give you 20 magical defense and 30% tenacity for like, I'm not actually sure how much gold it costed, but it was one of the cheaper items because it's not a full item. It's one of the things you use to build into something else. But now it only gives you 10% tenacity because people would rush this item to just ignore stuns pretty much, and it was really effective. So, rushing this item won't be... I'm sure some tryhards that are super duper sweaty will still rush it because they just love the tenacity buff that they have on them, but other than that, it won't be run as much. Gloves of Jealousy has been buffed. Its cooldown has been reduced to 2.5 seconds. That'll be really good on Wraith, because now you can just right click and auto somebody for a ton of damage, and then by the time your cooldown's back up, this thing cooldown is going to be done. It might have already been like that already, but still, this is a really cool change because you can practically proc it on every ability you push. So I think you'll see a lot more of Gloves of Jealousy on some characters. We received many comments that it was hard to experience the effects of this item, so the cooldown has been reduced. Yeah, that's a good buff. Swamp Cloak. Before it gave you 50 magical defense, 500 health, and 10%. Looks like they just buffed the magical defense by 10, and they increased the area of the slowing on it. The Artificial Gravity Inductor. So you would hit activate. You would activate this item. It wasn't active. And then people around you had their physical power decreased by 20%. Now it's going to be decreased by 40%, which is a pretty big buff. It also is going to buff the area. So I never saw anybody build this item before. Maybe it'll be built now. Who knows? Because 40% is a pretty decent nerf. So maybe like the dive characters, like Fang Mao or Grux, might build it. That way they don't get blown up by the ADC anyway. We'll just have to see. The Pendant of Confinement has a 2-second buff. And that'll be decent. Nothing crazy with that. Not sure why the cooldown's been reduced to increase tank heroes' contribution to quick lane organization during combat. Like, whatever. 2 seconds is not that much, but it's a buff, so we'll take it. The damage increase for magical junglers when you buy this item has been increased. So 10% at the level 1 Destroyer Stone, which is all anybody really used anyway. But when you upgrade it, it goes to 50 and to 60. So it's to help junglers like Countess or Shimby clear a little bit faster. Because right now, Magic Jungle is just kind of garbage. Nobody really runs it. I think technically Rampage is a Magic Jungle. And with the new Rampage buffs, you might see a lot of Rampage Jungle now. So that'll be kind of cool. It also gives you 40 magical power and 50... Oh no, it used to give you 40 magical power, now it gives you 50. I believe that's just for the Bone Crasher. And 50 more health. So yeah, I mean, a pretty cool buff to all magic junglers. That'll be great. Might actually see a slight shake-up in the meta for that. Joy of the Harvest. Everybody was building this. It used to give you 20 magical power and 100 mana, and now it only gives you 15 magical power. Before you had to kill 70 Tions, now you have to kill 100. And it costs 200 more gold. And they changed how it builds because it's slightly more expensive, but who cares? Yeah, the item was highly effective for its cost. It's a popular choice for many heroes. The items affect attainment conditions. Overall stats have been adjusted for more diverse utilization. Some people might still build this, because now it takes quite a while to build into it and to get it activated. But I mean, you might see people opting to not build it now, which is good. Vitality lenses, which is the last item here, increases magical penetration by 30 and had a 12-second cooldown. And it looks like they nerfed it to 25 and a 16-second cooldown. So received many comments that magical penetration cause certain heroes' damage to become too high. As a result, the penetration has been slightly adjusted as well as the cooldown to make it more appealing to assassin heroes. Okay, yeah, it'll probably be built slightly less, but it's still a pretty good item because magical penetration is still great. People like Countess will probably still run it. But there's still way more mage items to build on besides Vitality Lens. I'm sure the mages will be fine. And then after that, it's just bug fixes that if you want to read the bug fixes, you can go ahead and read them. But I will end the video there. I will be excited to test out some of the item changes and to look at some of the hero changes, specifically Rampage and Wraith. I think will be pretty good after this patch. And I mean, just if you're getting crushed by Muriels in lane, you know that this patch is to blame. I think she's going to be the new S tier support. Dekker will still be really annoying, but she's Dekker, so she'll live. And other than that, that is all I have for this video. So thank you everybody for watching. Hopefully you learned something about the patch notes. Hopefully I clarified something for you. And if you liked it, give it a like, hit the subscribe button, and I will see everybody in the next video.